the day, I think more people need to say, all right, when is my fucking creation time? When is my output, make magic, not checking email, getting the fuck off social and getting to work? Not listening to Gary Vee yell at you about bullshit stuff, but actually be like, I'm going to go create some things to hopefully, either make some money for my life or create, just things I want to see exist in the world. So just make more time for the creation stuff and less on the consumption stuff.
Welcome to Corporate Warrior, the podcast that brings you the best advice on how to improve your health, optimize performance, and maximize productivity. With your host, Lawrence Neal.
This podcast is brought to you by HitUni.com. HitUni.com are a provider of amazing online courses for high-intensity training qualifications. HitUni comes highly recommended by the best in the field, including Body by Science co-author Dr. Doug McGuff, Discover Strength CEO Luke Carlson, and trainer and founder of Bay.com, Drew Bay. It was founded by my friend, author, and longtime personal trainer Simon Shawcross, who's also been a guest on the podcast. Simon has 15 years experience training clients and has supervised over 15,000 high-intensity training workouts. Using knowledge from experts like Skylar Tanner, Dr. James Steele, Dr. Ellington Darden, HitUni is a goldmine for learning everything to do with high-intensity training. The courses are delivered online through the website, where you can learn via a variety of multimedia materials at your own pace. There's online support and a discussion forum where you can share ideas and ask for help. To learn more about high-intensity training and improve my own results, I started their personal trainer course. The content is amazing, the courses are really easy to follow, and each section is organized into bite-sized chunks that give you a real sense of achievement after you complete each one. I should also mention there is a DIY course. So this is the course for you if you're not necessarily a personal trainer, but you want to learn more about high-intensity training and how to implement it for maximum benefit in your own exercise regime. To get your exclusive Corporate Warrior 10% discount on any course you purchase, simply head on over to hituni.com, that's HITUNI.com, and enter the coupon code CW10, that's CW and the number 10. So again, head on over to hituni.com, pick your course, and enter the coupon code CW10 for 10% discount. Thank you for your support. This podcast is brought to you by Vital Exercise, a one-of-a-kind personal training facility in the UK, owned and run by world-class personal trainer Ted Harrison. For over 30 years, Ted has been very successful in helping people achieve great results. And if you've seen the blog posts for his episodes on this podcast, you will see that he walks the walk. And at 56, he's a beast and in excellent shape. Operating from a high-intensity training base, Ted uses an eclectic mix of training styles to optimize results for his clients. Ted put me through one of the best workouts of my life and is someone I go to for advice often. To book a free consultation either at his facility in Essex in the UK, or to find out more about his virtual coaching, which includes personalized training, nutritional and motivational advice, please go to corporatewarrior.co/TED, where you can fill in a contact form or phone Ted directly. That's corporatewarrior.co/TED. Hi guys, I am Lawrence Neal and welcome to another episode of Corporate Warrior. It's a fairly grey Tuesday morning here in Galway in Ireland, but that does not make me any less excited to bring you this episode. This podcast teaches you how to optimize productivity in health, career, business, and lifestyle by interviewing the most effective people around today. So my guests include people like Rob Wolf, Ben Greenfield, Mark Sisson, Dr. Doug McGuff, Skylar Tanner, Drew Bay, Noah Kagan, Keith Norris, Bill Day Simone, etc., etc. So effectively, I try and find the best people at what I'm trying to learn at any given moment and what I think you guys are interested in learning about in terms of productivity in health, business, and lifestyle, and I try and bring their knowledge to the table. My next guest is someone I've been trying to get on the show for a long time. His name is Noah Kagan. Noah is best known for being employee number 30 at Facebook and number 4 at Mint, and is co-founder and chief sumo at sumo.com and appsumo.com. Noah is a very successful entrepreneur and has created multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses. You may have heard me talk about Noah before in the podcast, since he has been very instrumental in helping me build my own business, and he is, in my opinion, the number one guy out there today for helping entrepreneurs become real entrepreneurs. His monthly 1K business course completely changed the way I look at business and opened up a whole world of possibilities for me. Furthermore, Noah is an incredible marketer and understands the most effective ways to sell more stuff and get your business noticed. This episode is packed with advice on how to be more productive in your business and lifestyle. In this episode, we discuss how to manage your day effectively, eliminate distractions, and optimize creative output, how to grow a podcast fast, his approach versus the 4-hour work week Muse Business Design by Tim Ferriss and what is most effective, and much, much more. For all of the show notes and links for this episode and all episodes, please go to corporatewarrior.org, and don't forget to hang around at the end of this episode for your free gift. And now I give you Noah Kagan.
No, you've got a lot going on, right? You've achieved a lot. You've set up multiple successful businesses, 7-8 figure businesses, including AppSumo, SumoMe, OK Dork Blog. You've done so much stuff. Why did you decide to start a podcast? I'm really curious as to what motivated you to want to do that in the first place.
One, it's a horrible idea. It's just not a good idea to do a podcast because not many people listen to it, and growing them is one of the hardest things I've ever seen from a marketing channel. Why I did start it though was that I noticed I was having conversations with certain people that I just wanted to record for myself. I was like, man, this is such a fun chat, and it literally just died right here. No one else gets to listen to it, and that seemed really unfortunate. And I thought it'd be really fun to record them and then just share them with people. And where it's led to me, I've been doing it now about 7 months, and talk to me in 7 years. I think that the two biggest things that I've realized is that one, just find things that you would work on for free. And I love chatting with people. I guess it's really fun. I get to chat with people. I talked with Gail from Authority Hacker earlier, and we were talking about just different marketing strategies. I was like, this is so good. So that's part one. You get to talk to just amazing people. And part two, it's like I would do this stuff for free. And I think that's a great way that people should be approaching different businesses. Like, what would you do even if you're not getting paid? And generally, that's how you end up getting paid really, really well.
Good answer. So recently you had Nick from NPR, and one of the producers from NPR, come onto your podcast, talk about how to hack podcasting, essentially, or how to make yours as effective as it can be. And I found it really interesting. I took loads of notes, but was really curious because it kind of conflicted in some way with, the kind of long form approach that, say, Tim Ferriss might advocate. And obviously there's been several successful long form podcasts like Joe Rogan. Mine's long form and quite unedited. And maybe that's due to partly laziness, but also like I find it difficult to sustain if I had to edit it down to the level that Nick was like recommending. So do you really think, I know he's legit, and I know he's obviously responsible for getting like the top 5, whatever it is, podcasts on iTunes. But what are your thoughts about, what he said in terms of editing it right down versus the kind of long form, authentic podcast? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the word that you said, which is the most important part to me, is sustainable. To me. So I can, and you also have to embrace your strengths. And Nick is a professional audio person. Then they found that making these 15-minute stories, super highly polished, no mistakes, is the best way to get a very large-scale audience. And, that works for them. And so after talking with the NPR thing, I think you have to find something sustainable, most important. Number 2 is you have to just really be, and I hate when people say authentic, because authentic just means just be your fucking self. And so what is being yourself is, I did the NPR style and I started trying to do it. And I think it's more just like figuring out what works for you. So the main thing I took away from Nick was just cut out a lot of the bullshit or the fluff in these conversations, and because it would waste time and people aren't going to listen to it. And I originally made it almost too formulaic. I was like, I got to be just like NPR. And I'm listening to it and I'm doing these episodes and I was like, I don't want to listen to this. It's like, welcome to NPR. This is going to be a thing. And so I'm like, that's just not me. And so I think it's kind of like a chef or a writer. You have to try different ingredients and then figure out which way do you like your dish to taste.
Interesting.
Yeah, one quick thing. I just think that other people, the thing that also is helpful is that if you're trying to improve, it doesn't mean you go copy everybody else, but go find an expert and just give them like $50, $100, a few $100, and that's what I did with NPR. It's what I've done with YouTube. And even if it doesn't improve you that much, you get to learn and shortcut a lot of the knowledge or things you're probably going to waste a lot of time on.
When you started the podcast, you were aiming for 100,000 downloads per episode in the first year.
Yeah.
Is that still the goal?
Good memory.
And how are you tracking against that?
Yeah, it's shitty. I like hitting goals, and I'm very singular. So if you ask me, I have one goal for the company and one goal for my hobby, which is the podcast. And then I map it out. I use a spreadsheet, and I just map out my targets, and I plan exactly how I'm going to get the target. I think it's not doing as well as I thought, so I probably should have reforecasted it in the beginning of the year, like right away. Like I had I think 10,000 the first month, and then it's like 11,000, 12,000. I'm like, well, it's unrealistic to get that. But the other thing that I think that we talked about earlier is that I also want to do something sustainable. 2 years ago, my main goal was to get a certain amount of subscribers to okdork.com, my blog. And once I got there, I stopped blogging for a year because I was just like, all right, well, I got my goal. I'm done. And so I'm trying to think of things and goals where it just doesn't end. So if I hit 50,000, that's fine. Then I'll hit 100,000. I'll hit 200,000. So one, it's good to have a singular goal. Reforecast it if you're way off base, and find goals that extend beyond just the 1 year mark, which I've struggled with.
So I've heard you talk about continuity with goals before and how you feel that that's important. Okay, so I'm really, because obviously you're known for being a great marketer and just excellent at marketing, right? You have a kind of like, humbled expression, but I think you know that. And I'm just really curious, what have you found has worked the best in terms of marketing your podcast and having the biggest impact?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that because I did this episode with Mike Posner, who's a friend, and he's an amazing music artist. And I thought the episode, I honestly was like, this is like I've got Jesus Christ on audio. I can't believe it. And I put it out there, and I was like, I can't wait it. Now I'm going to be on the Oprah show and all this stuff. And it was like my least downloaded episode ever. And the reality is that sometimes the guests can make it, but it wasn't as much impactful. Some of the episodes, like my cousin's episode or Tynan, or like this one I talked about, just things that are working in business, have gotten a ton of downloads and helped grow the show. So the only thing I've seen two things that have helped me grow my show. That's it. Number one, get on other shows. Why? Because it's contextual. So if I'm reading, for example, if I'm reading a newsletter, an email newsletter, it makes sense that I would actually read other newsletters because I already say that I'm liking it. That's where with AppSumo, we advertise in a lot of other newsletters because that helped us grow our newsletter because people are reading them already. The second thing that I've seen is that you have to, just basically you have to grow your email list. You have to have a direct communication to people, and you have to keep telling them to do it. So if you join my newsletter, right away I'm like, go listen to my podcast. And then twice a month I send an email that's a new email that's like, go listen to this episode, go listen to this episode. I'm always surprised at how much you have to remind people before they eventually take action. So those are the two things. There might be other ones in the future. I'm experimenting with ads on Overcast. That's actually seems to be driving some subscribers, but it's not cheap. You're paying like $2 to $5 a subscriber.
Okay.
But I think so far it's get on other shows, grow your email list, and tell people to do it. Those are some of the major things. I haven't seen anything else besides like you want to put out episodes that people want to share. But like, yeah, the one where you have like a big guest, I thought if I had big guests like, Tim and some of these other shows, you have these major guests, that would drive a lot of new listeners because it would reach their audience. But I think the way that you have to do it, and this is what I'm getting better at, is if you're trying to reach new audiences, you have to be a little bit more proactive in getting your guest to then promote it more actively. So how do you give them email templates, or how do you give them the social templates like Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, whatever that is, and excite them to want to tell their audience to go check it out? Because podcast is not like, you can't just digest it. You have to go get the app. You have to find the episode. Like, tell someone, try this out, Lawrence. Go leave a review for someone's podcast today. To leave a review for a podcast, you have to find this app. You have to find this thing. You have to click this thing. You have to do this thing. And it's not an easy process.
It's a pain in the ass. I totally agree. Do you still, you've talked in the past about how you with new businesses or anything that you're trying to grow, you will have like 10 marketing tactics, or you'll think of 10 and then you'll rank them based on effectiveness. Now, I know this is kind of more of a hobby for you, but did you apply that same method to your marketing in this instance?
Yeah, I'll show you the spreadsheet so you can see how I've like organized it.
Cool.
And I can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think one thing I want to highlight is that I don't actually think I'm a great marketer. Look at me. This is like I'm the marketing wizard. All I've actually really done, Lawrence, is that I just find products that I'm so fucking happy with and so excited about. And then I pretty much do whatever it takes to make sure people know about it. The right people know about it. That's all I'm actually pretty damn good at. If you give me, and it's funny because people have said, "Hey, I've got this thing. How would you market it?" I'm like, I just don't have a fucking clue. I would just give up. Like my friend ran this site, Daily Strength, and it was a anonymous social network for people in need. And I loved my friend, but I was like, I honestly never would use this. It's just not really my thing. So don't really have an understanding of it. Yes, there's some elements of marketing that are true for everywhere. Like you have to have a clear goal. You have to map out how you're going to get to that goal. You have to map out the tactics to help accomplish those things. But I just find it a lot easier when you're excited about what that product is, like with appsumo.com or with sumo.com or with my podcast. I think they're great stuff. So I'm excited to go promote it. So in terms of modeling, like here's a little spreadsheet that I started to put together. And what I do is that you'll see I had targets for how many downloads I want per episode. And then on the bottom, I say how I'm going to get those downloads. And then that should all add up, because what you have to do is make sure it adds up to your goal. And I'll remove things that aren't working, and then I'll add things that are working. Right now, in general, I'm really deprioritizing my podcast to 20% of my time, and 80% of the time I'm working on Sumo. So pretty much I'm not super actively trying to promote it, besides it's in my autoresponder so people automatically find out about it. Or once a week I'll go on other people's shows.
Cool. Okay. So are you all right for me to take that list? I've never actually done this before. I've never shared a file via Dropbox, via Skype in real time. So are you all right for me to load that into the show notes later, or did you actually want to go through it now quickly?
Yeah. So if you want to add it in the show notes. So for example, like I want 100,000 downloads by December. So in January, how many do I realistically think I can get? I'm like, all right, maybe 6,500. But here's the part that most people don't do. They don't have a clear number, one clear number for their business or for their projects. Then they don't map it out. Well, it's like, how many do you need each month? And then let's say I want 6,500. How the F am I going to get 6,500? And so you have to actually list out, well, if I do and you could list out 20 different things. So giveaways, guest postings, sumo.com, interviews on other shows, cross promotion, advertising, da-da-da-da-da. And then rank them. So how many do I think I'll get from this, from this, from this? And I don't do all of them. I just do the first few that I think are the biggest potential. And then at the end of the month, I'm like, well, that did work. That worked. So I'm going to keep doing it. This didn't work. So I just delete it. So this list used to be around 20. And I just keep deleting the ones that aren't working and keep increasing and trying to do more of the things that are working.
Awesome. Okay. I noticed that you've managed to get a lot of reviews. You spoke just now about how difficult it is to get reviews, and I completely agree with you. How did you manage to get so many? I mean, I know that, is it just the case that you've got a large audience already that you leveraged, or did you use a specific tactic or something to get more reviews?
Yeah, so I used the launch strategy where when I launched the show, I gave away a bunch of stuff and I said, hey, listen to the show, give me your honest feedback, and here's where to go to leave a review. You have to show them. And then I will give away different prizes, I think gifts and things like that from sponsors. I got people to give me free products that I like. So they got promotion, and then I gave that away to people who left an honest review, whether it was bad or good. I just wanted them to leave the review. And then I was able to drive it. I probably need to do another launch in terms of talking about doing more of what works.
Yeah, I think I took part in that.
Nice,
yeah, I forgot. But no, I remember you doing it, and I thought it was a great strategy. Okay, so time's ticking on, so just keen to get on some other things. Really interesting. Your monthly 1K course was a game changer for me. Really,
that's cool.
Yeah, man. Like it just completely changed the way I looked at business. Simplified it right down. I really got passionate about and kind of embraced the ghetto attitude. Like look at your immediate network. Your Facebook, your friends, your emails, and sell the product to them or see if they'll buy it first. and had quite a lot, well, at least for me, relative success pre-selling different businesses that I've started.
Good for you.
Thanks, man. So I owe you a lot for that. And I think what happens though, and I'm not trying to like create some kind of Noah Kagan versus Tim Ferriss situation here at all, but I'm really curious to know your thoughts. So obviously in the 4-Hour Workweek, Tim describes how you create a muse, which is the goal to become almost completely passive. You're not a fan of passive income, or at least you don't feel that it's a good strategy for most people. So when people, do you have those conversations with people? I'd really just be keen to know what you think about, Tim's kind of muse strategy in the 4-Hour Workweek, and what you think the problems might be with it.
So I look at businesses like I look at restaurants. There's a lot of different Japanese restaurants in London, and then there's a bunch of different restaurants in Austin that serve the same type of food, but people just have different tastes. And some people like my dishes, some people like Tim's dishes. I think there's a lot of, and they both can work. They both get you full. I think the people just have different preferences. I just share the ways that work for me over the past 17 years, and Tim's got his. I think there's some overlap, like, testing your messaging ahead of time. I'm a little bit more ghetto, and I'm a little bit more speed conscious to say, like, how do I get my speed to validation much quicker than spending money on ads and hoping that the landing page converts and all this other kind of stuff. I don't like doing hope when I start businesses.
Yeah.
Tim's book is revolutionary. Like, as much as some people love him or hate him, I still respect the shit out of him. He's a friend of mine. That, like, he shifted the minds of probably millions of people and how they've thought about their business and their own life. And I think that's awesome. I just only share, like, hey, here's how I like to start businesses. If you like it this way, come try it. And, Tim's way could work for you too. And I think Tim and mine, there's a lot of similarities as well.
Yeah, there is. And I'm a huge fan of Tim, and I talk about him on this podcast a lot. And he's had a huge impact as well on my career before I started doing Corporate Warrior full time, but also on how I structure my day and prioritize and things like that. You're very passionate about personal finance, and I copied your finance spreadsheet
nice.
to figure out the net worth and all of that. I've recently moved country. I'm dealing with bank accounts in different countries, different currencies. It's a nightmare. I tried to use youneedabudget.com, which I'm kind of playing around with, but I'm just curious. I don't know, maybe you'll just say, I don't budget, I'm rich. But like, do you budget? And if so, like, how do you budget? Just curious.
Being rich is all relative. You can be rich in love and spirit. I think it just really depends on what kind of lifestyle you want. I don't have a very expensive lifestyle. So I have an apartment, which is kind of pricey. It's $2,500 a month, but it's not like crazy New York SF prices. I have a Miata that I paid for. I have a scooter, and I spend maybe $1,000 a month on food and outings. So my overall lifestyle is very minimal. I think that's probably a good takeaway. Is like, create a lifestyle so you don't have so much pressure to have to make money, and then you can make as much as you want or as little as you want. And that's what I've preferred to do. So I don't ever budget. I think in terms of finances, people should just try to think two things. One, how do you just make more of your finances automatic? Meaning that, like, every month I buy a certain amount of index fund, or a certain amount of it goes into like this Bitcoin purchase, where every month I buy $500 of Bitcoin. And I think the bigger thing is, like, create a very low burn so you don't have to sweat money. Set up more things on automatic. And then, I don't know, spend the time where you really want to spend it. I don't really like spend time thinking about like stocks or thinking about how the market's doing. So I have a lot of my money in cash because I don't want to sweat it. And yeah, that's kind of where it is, man. I don't know. Is there more specific ones? Because like, I just don't budget. Because like, to me, that sounds like a job. The main thing I do is that, like, once a month, as I've put out online, like once a month I review my finances because I think it's healthy to look at that on a monthly basis. But beyond that, my money works for me. I don't want to work for it.
Oh, I do agree. And there's kind of a philosophy with like YNAB users, which is like, you're supposed to update it every day because you're supposed to be conscious of how you're spending. But I see the logic in that. But going back to your point, it's like, time and attention is finite. And if you're using that to like check this software every day, I just don't know if it's a great use of time. And I kind of agree with your philosophy. And I think I might end up moving in that direction. I just have to be, where I am in my life at the moment, especially with finances, I have to be perhaps a little bit careful.
Why is that?
Well, So I had a sales career in the UK, and had a pretty successful career, saved a lot of money, at least for me, and decided to move to Galway in Ireland to live with my partner. And in so doing, decided to focus on Corporate Warrior full time. So,
Nice.
I have obviously revenues through affiliates and sponsors and things like that. But it's something I'm now having to crank up in order to, I guess, reach my revenue goals, but also try and make sure that the listener's experience is still optimized. So that's where I'm at.
Good for you, man. That's great. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying in the beginning. Is like keep your expenses super low, so you're not pressured to have to go make some amount of money. That's at least my personal preference. I think it's just nice in general to be able to buy what you want at a restaurant, and that's kind of what I aim for. Like I want to be able to go to a restaurant at Whole Foods and just be like, okay, this banana's like $1.50, I can afford it, and that's what I aspire to. It's not like having an expensive car or a fancy house. I just want to be able to like not have to sweat getting the things I want when I'm just checking stuff out.
Well, you tried the expensive car and it didn't work for you, didn't it?
Yeah, that, and it just, I think what you have to do is figure out two things. One, where do you spend the most of your time? That's where you should spend the most of your money. So if you spend the most of your time on a couch, get a nice fucking couch. If you spend the most time driving because you love driving, get a nice car. And I think people don't necessarily align that very well. So they're just kind of like spending money all over the place. And then I also spend money on things that just are like compounding dividends. So either from an investment perspective or from a knowledge perspective. So we were talking about the NPR guy earlier, or the YouTube coach, or other people that I've hired to teach me things. Like that type of stuff, literally for the rest of my life, for the next 50 to 100 years, I can keep using. And I think those are just kind of good frames of thinking about, all right, how am I, wanting to spend my money? Yeah,
it's funny interviewing you, because I've consumed so much of your work that it's almost quite hard to come up with a question to ask you that, to get, I guess, knowledge out of you that I haven't already like consumed through like YouTube or your podcast or whatever. Not to say that what you're saying isn't original, because it is, some of it. Yeah.
No, I actually don't think anything is original. I think everything is a copy. People are like, oh, look at this business. I'm like, you don't think they've been selling things in the 1800s? Like, it's not new. Two suggestions for you is, one, I actually think if you would have approached me saying, hey, I'm one of your customers and I like bought your so if you actually said, hey, I was a monthly 1K customer and I bought your course and I got these results and thank you so much. When you said, and if I would have been like, oh, that's so awesome. And then you said, hey, I'm working on this podcast. Would you mind being on it? It would mean a lot to me. It'd be so much easier for me to say yes versus like a random guy saying, hey, come on this random show. So that's just one thing that I'm working on, where if I'm reaching out to people, because I'm reaching out to people all the time, and I'm trying to say like, oh, this is how you help me, or this is what I want to do for you, versus just like what I want for myself.
Yeah.
So that would be the one thing. The other thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is just this whole fucking consumption mentality of me too. Like I read a lot of books. I'm trying to read more blog posts. I listen to podcasts. But at the end of the day, I think more people need to say, all right, when is my fucking creation time? When is my output, make magic, not checking email, getting the fuck off social and getting to work, not listening to Gary Vee yell at you about bullshit stuff, but actually be like, I'm going to go create some things to hopefully, either make some money for my life or create, just things I want to see exist in the world. So just make more time for the creation stuff and less on the consumption stuff.
No, I really appreciate the feedback, and I wish I'd done that now. And
no, man, it's too easy. It's easy to sit behind the computer. It's easy to think you're learning. It's easy to think it's really helping. It's hard to do the part where you're like, all right, I'm actually going to go think about strategy about how do I take Corporate Warrior from, $500 a month to $5,000 a month, and what do I really need to do to make that happen, and how much time am I actually putting in to make that the reality, and am I willing to work a hard year to make it true? And that's the hard part. A lot of people want the idea of it, but they're not willing to put in the work to make that the reality. Sometimes I meet it myself too. I'm like, shit, man. Sometimes I want a six pack, but I don't want to have to do a bunch of sit-ups and stop drinking alcohol.
How are you doing for time, by the way? I know you got to shoot soon.
I've got less than 8 minutes. I don't mean to be rude. It's just someone else kicked me out of the room. I've got 8 minutes.
Cool. I'm a big fan of checklists. Atul Gawande wrote Checklist Manifesto. Are you familiar with that book at all?
I am. I thought it was good, not great.
I agree, and I feel like it could have been summarized on a blog post probably. I just wondered, do you use checklists in your businesses? For instance, I have once this podcast goes live, I'll have a marketing checklist, a bunch of activities that I do. Obviously, I try and automate where I can to make sure I get the biggest, obviously, the most exposure for that podcast. So what do you use checklists, and where do you use them in your businesses?
So I fucking write everything down. When I meet people and they say, hey, here's a book. And you ever told someone, hey, this is a great book. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, you're going to write it down? They're like, no. I'm like, all right, well, you're not going to remember it. So I just write everything down. Everything. If I can put it in my, remember the milk or on notes, I'll write it all down. Checklists are super helpful for dumb people. So what I mean by that, think about it. Checklists are super helpful, though. They're super helpful, but they can also limit you. So I do love checklists for consistency. So when I do an article with OK Dork, David, who does the promotion and helps me with everything, is amazing. We have a checklist of here's ways we can promote it. And we do that with sumo.com as well. Here's how we're going to promote a checklist. And it's super helpful to have processes. Like if we're sending an email, like with Sumo, we're emailing 1 million people. Have a checklist. Like, are the links checked? Is this checked? And that's what that book is about. Just having checklists to ensure consistency and scalability. The problem with checklists is that you have to just make sure you revisit them. Because what a checklist will do is it limits you to that ability. You're like, well, I'm only going to do this. And I think you just have to remind, this is what I do. I remind myself of like, well, is there ways to keep improving the process? Yeah. And not let the process limit you from staying in that scope. So it's super helpful for the consistency, and then you could give it to monkeys, but you also have to kind of keep coming back to that checklist and be like, is this actually doing the outcomes that I'm expecting?
Yeah, so like constantly refining them, making them more effective. Like I constantly do that. I have them in Evernote, and I'm just always kind of going back to them and just refining them and improving them when I think I can. You're well, at least you were a big follow-up CC user.
I use it all the time.
Okay, I was just because I use Boomerang and Email Game, as a la Tim Ferriss always recommending those services. Why don't you use Email Game or Boomerang, or do you? I'm just curious.
It's all the same shit. No, I don't. So I use tools to be able to follow up with people easily. I use Follow Up CC. It works. I use Outreach.io. That works too for more like corporate stuff. I think people need to be less consumed with the tools and more consumed with actually manual work. And so what I mean by that is that what does follow up do? It helps me follow up. But what happens is that sometimes people are like, I need to use all these extra tools. And it's like, well, are you sure it even works before you need to go automate it? Here's an example of it. We're doing some outreach emails for Sumo to get people to help us promote it or to link to some stuff. And these guys put in these tools, this Mailshake tool to help automate emailing. And we're spamming people because it's a bunch of shitty emails, because now we can email a bunch of people shitty stuff. And so I think that what people need to be considerate of is that do stuff manually, see if it works, then go look for a tool to really help you leverage that and accelerate it, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's good advice. Just for those listening, to give some context, Boomerang was pretty critical of getting Noah onto the podcast because I used it to remind myself to follow you up in the timeframes that you asked me, and then you were really pleased with me following up. So it just shows that if you things like that are really important, to take that load off your mind to try and remind you to remember to follow up anything.
No, I think follow up is one of the most, if you could have any skill in sales or in business, I'd say top 3 is following up. I can't tell you how many times people email hey, this is so important, Noah, can we do this together? And I'm curious if they'll actually follow up, and no one does. And I've actually looked at the data on my side. When I've done recruiting, I use tools to send emails to track so I can track. 50% of my when they actually say, let's talk about this job and come work at Sumo, is on the second email. 50% of people will reply on the second email. And so and these tools help with that, but as long as you follow up using a tool or put in your calendar, you're going to be ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, that's good to know. Okay, so I'm going to be respectful of your time. I know you need to shoot. No, so grateful for you taking the time out of your day to come on to my show. Appreciate it. Is there any kind of final piece of advice you want to leave the listeners with?
Wow. Yes. I'll give you a few pieces of advice. One, don't listen to my advice. I only tell you the things that I've experienced. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it don't. This is just what's worked for me. Number 2, learn how to type faster. You spend all day on a computer. If you're less than 90 words a minute, your output is going to be limited by your speed of typing. Or just do dictation. Dictation, you could do 300 to 400 words a minute. Number 4, go delete Facebook from your phone. Just delete your shit. Basically, you'll be more alive. You'll stop admiring all these other fake-ass people, and you'll actually start living your own life. That's my 3 tips.
That's awesome advice. And to all those listening, to find the links and resources for this episode and all episodes, please go to corporatewarrior.org. And
.org? What the fuck? Corporate Warrior.
It's a long story. It's a long story. I've got .co, but it's I've got .co, but I'm using that to forward people to different pages, but then trying to use that to redirect to my actual home domain. It's a nightmare. No, we'd be here all day talking about it. I'll figure it out. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to this, and until next time, take care.
I hope you enjoyed that. Before you head off, head on over to corpwarrior.com to get your free ebook with 6 interview transcripts with some of my top guests, including Dr. Doug McGuff, Drew Bay, and Bill Day Simone, on how to optimize muscle gain, fat loss, and overall health in an efficient, effective, and sustainable way. These transcripts are not verbatim, deliberately. Instead, they've been transcribed in an easy read format to make it more enjoyable and easier for you to quickly pick out what you need and start getting results. To get your ebook, head on over to corpwarrior.com, that's CORP warrior.com, and enter your email address. Then check your email for an email from me with a confirmation link. Once you click the link, you will be instantly redirected to a PDF version of the transcripts.